CXO Community.
Another important thing happened that year. 3 companies took a bold step and created the computing, tabulating, recording company. And the world was about to get a whole lot smarter.
By 1912, the year I was born, the company already has 1,300 employees.
1913. The company's Howler's tabulating machine, once used only in census taking, is now applied to industry.
In 1914, 76 years before the American Disabilities Act was passed, they hired their first disabled worker.
In 1915, the best man for the job of president is Thomas J. Watson.
Mr. Watson believes that all the problems of the world can be settled easily if people are only willing to think.
1917, Brazil. 1918, 3,000 employees. Growth.
1919, the electronic synchronized time clock.
The first printing tabulator.
The job ticket printing machine.
The Carroll Rotary Card Press.
The electric key punch. By 1924, as a way to signal the company's future ambitions, Watson changes the name of the company to International Business Machines, IBM.
In 1925, a tableware manufacturer installs the first IBM tabulating machine in Japan.
Tabulating machine technology is so reliable, it's used well after the invention of the computer.
I was born in 1927, and so is the automated gag punch.
The 80-column IBM punch card.
The first card counting printing sorter ships in 29.
In 1930, Watson received his first patent for a traffic signal timing system.
1931, IBM introduces the automatic multiplying punch, the automatic reproducing punch, the first motor drive duplicating punch, and the first automatic summary punch. 31 was a big year for punches.
In 1932, IBM starts an education department for employees and customers.
The numeric printing tabulator.
In 1934, IBM introduces group life insurance in the midst of the Great Depression.
In 1935, IBM opens the first professional training school for women.
1936, Social Security. Many believed it wouldn't exist without IBM. It's called the biggest accounting operation of all time.
1937, IBM China.
In 1938, millions of children first hear the phrase, "Please fill in the bubble completely," thanks to the IBM 805 International Test Scoring Machine.
1939, IBM demonstrates an early form of email at the New York World's Fair.
1940, a vacuum tube that processes information thousands of times faster than ever before.
In 1941, IBM hires Dr. Michael Supa to make its products more usable by the visually impaired. Dr. Supa was blind.
IBM believes in cultivating and developing the best talent in the world. That's why we introduced the Disabled Employee Training Program in 1942.
In 1943, Ruth Leach becomes IBM's first female vice president.
1944, the automated sequence-controlled calculator.
The first Watson Scientific Lab opens in 1945 at Columbia University.
T.J. Lester, IBM's first black sales representative, is hired in 1946.
By the late 40s, IBM products are being used in 79 countries around the globe. From Cairo to Chicago, they're really growing.
The selector sequence electronic calculator, the first computer that could modify a school program.
The card programmed electronic calculator.
1950, IBM's in Israel.
In 1951, we started work on the IBM 701, the world's first mass-produced computer. It's the machine that carries us into the electronics business.
In 1952, IBM Chairman Thomas J. Watson hands the reins over to his son, Thomas J. Watson Jr., and the modern corporation continues to evolve.
In 1953, Watson Jr. issues the company's first equal opportunity policy letter. The Civil Rights Act comes over a decade later.
I was born in 1954.
That same year, an IBM computer translates Russian into English. A first.
1955年、IBM の700に電子データプロセスマシンが誕生しました。
1956, Red Hat.
1957, Fortran.
Watson Jr. hires the best architects and designers in the world to work with IBM. Good design is good business.
More affordable and easier to use than anything before it, the IBM 1401 is the first computer in the world to sell 10,000 units.
1960, the stretch computing system.
1961, la machine à écrire électrique, Unicode.
In 1962, IBM develops the Sabre reservation system for American Airlines. What once took hours can now be done in real time.
The following year, in one of the riskiest decisions ever made in business, Watson Jr. bets the future of the company on
The System 360 takes several years and $5 billion to develop, making it the largest privately financed commercial project in history.
For the first time, the power of computing is accessible to organizations of all sizes.
In 1966, IBM researcher Robert Denard invents DRAM, memory on a chip. Eventually, billions would be produced.
1967, Benoit Mandelbrot. He invents fractal geometry, and a new branch of mathematics is born.
By 1968, IBM's 10-year partnership with America's space program is converging on their ultimate mission.
As we explore the regions of space, let us go to the new worlds together. Not as new worlds to be conquered, but as a new adventure to be shared.
Il database relazionale rivoluziona il modo in cui i dati sono accumulati e processati.
1971. Computers and cloud.
IBM's first automated teller machine was introduced in June of '72. In 1973, IBM introduces the UPC barcode.
1974, Systems Network Architecture.
1975, the IBM 5100, the first portable computer. Kinda.
1976, the first laser printer.
IBM's data encryption standard revolutionizes the way information is protected.
IBM introduces the first mini computer to feature a built-in relational database.
The first Kanji computer terminal is introduced in '79, the year I was born.
RISC. It's invented by IBM in 1980, and it's still the basis of most microprocessors today. IBM introduces the personal computer. We expect to sell 240,000 units. We sell 2 million over the next 3 years.
The Tokyo Research Lab opens in 1982.
IBM introduces the System 36, an easy-to-use business computer featuring 2,800 help screens.
Is a 1 million bit memory chip possible? In 1984, it is.
1985, John Akers becomes IBM's 7th CEO.
1986, Gerd Binning and Heinrich Rohr become the second and third IBMers to win the Nobel Prize. The first was Leo Isaki.
1987, Georg Bernhardt und Alex Müller gewinnen für ihren Durchbruch in Hochtemperatur-Superleitfähigkeit.
1988, AS400.
Silicon germanium chips.
1990.
What does an IBM scientist do to prove he can move atoms? He rearranges them to form the letters IBM.
IBM researchers invent a computer chip that can move 8 billion bits of information in a single second.
ThinkPad. The early 90s. Tough times for IBM. Some people wonder if the company's going to make it, but in 1993, Lou Gerstner arrives and takes IBM in a whole new direction.
IBM refocuses everyone on the customer. How?
Solutions.
Systems, software, services, e-business. By 1997, IBM is back.
The same year, IBM's Deep Blue defeats the reigning grand champion of chess.
A thrilling win for IBM's Deep Blue.
IBM embraces Linux, and the era of open source innovation is born.
The President of the United States awards the National Medal of Technology to IBM. the 7th they received so far.
Carbon nanotubes.
Military technology stores 3 billion bits in a space this big.
In 2003, Sam Palmisano becomes the big boss. The world will soon become smaller and flatter.
The World Community Grid.
Bluebeam, the fastest computer ever.
这个电脑说英文。
This computer speaks English.
Per inch, per inch, per inch.
What a planet.
All the fatties.
After a century of innovations, we're just getting started.
100 is a big, big number.
What will the next 100 years bring?
I use the past to predict the future.
I'm working on the next big breakthrough.
In 10 years, supercomputers could use 10 times less power and run 1,000 times faster.
I'll be able to sequence a genome so we can create personalized medicine.
The whole world is data.
I'm using data to help detect the onset of disease.
I've discovered a way to build curiosity into the system.
I'm working on a system that can think like you.
We've always been working for the future.
That's what I'm working on.
That's what I'm working on. That's what I'm working on.
I'm an IBMer.
I'm an IBM.
I'm an IBM.
I think that you have to have more than just a machine.
Hoy tenemos el honor de recibir en nuestra casa al señor Mike Daniels, Senior Vice President de IBM Global Technologies Services. Yo tenía preparadas unas palabras de bienvenida, no contaba con la competencia de un video profesional y voy a hacer la presentación en inglés para por cortesía con nuestro invitado que no habla español. Good afternoon, everybody. We are very glad to have you all here today to celebrate the 100 years of IBM moving the boundaries of science and technology. Coincidentally with the 15 years Wade has devoted to higher education and research. When writing these few words, I was tempted to list the inventions and developments of IBM through its history. But believe me that it was a mission impossible. Just take a look at the IBM website and you will be shocked. From the moment it was incorporated in the state of New York in June 16, 1911, as the Computing, Tabulating, Recording Company, CTR, to our current days, you will find a myriad of incredible inventions that have changed not only the world of business, but also the world itself. Let me mention a few milestones that follow the initial tabulators and punch cards. The International Proof Machine from 1935, the automatic sequence control calculator, also called the Mark I from 1944, marking IBM's first steps towards computing. The selected sequence electronic calculator from 1948, the card program electronic calculator from 1949, the random access method of accounting and control, and the formula translation, Fortran, a computer language based on algebra, grammar, and syntax rules, both from 1957. The personal computer from 1981. The first time IBM outsourced the production of its components. This way, the processor chip came from Intel, and the operating system called DOS, this operating system came from a 32-person company called Microsoft. Not to mention the IBM Token Ring local area network from 1985, among other innovations. But what is more impressive for a university that like Wale is the extraordinary blend of business and technology that IBM represents. Since the construction of both the research and development laboratories and the schoolhouse in Endicott, New York in 1933, IBM's significant investment in research per year has produced 4 Nobel Prize winners in physics and has achieved breakthroughs in mathematics, memory storage, and telecommunications. In 2003, for example, IBM earned more than 3,400 US patents, breaking the record for patents received in a single year, and extending its run as the world's most innovative company to 11 consecutive years. In those 11 years, IBM innovations have generated more than 25,000 US patents, nearly triple the total of any US IT competitor during the same time. In 2004, US President George W. Bush announces that IBM has been awarded the National Medal of Technology by the US Department of Commerce and the Technology Administration, in recognition for more than 4 decades of innovation in semiconductor technology. The award recognizes such breakthroughs as the development of multi-core processor integration, dynamic random access memory, the use of copper on-chip wiring, silicon on insulator technology, and high-speed silicon germanium chips. The National Medal of Technology is the nation's highest award for technological innovation. This is the fascinating story of a $100 billion revenue company with more than 420,000 employees, and the slogan, a culture of thinking. We would like to thank Mike Daniels and the executive team of IBM for having selected Wale as their home for the celebration of its first 100 years of innovation for the world. We very much appreciate your coming to Argentina to share both anniversaries. So happy birthday to both.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you here at UAD. It's also your birthday, I understand, 50 years as an institution. So you're about halfway there. So keep up the good work. Congratulations. This year does mark 100 years of service to customers from IBM. We've been in Argentina over 88 of those years. And I've been with IBM over 35 of those years. It's a remarkable milestone, really. No other technology company has achieved it. In fact, very few institutions achieve 100 years. So it's an occasion to celebrate and reflect. we take this occasion not to look backwards, but to look forward. Underlying everything IBM has been for 100 years has been that spirit of looking forward. We want to engage with you, the leaders of the future, to share our perspectives and deepen our understanding of what institutions must do to be successful in the next 100 years. And I'd like to talk to you about 3 lessons we've learned in the last century. The first is around the nature and implications of information technology. The second is, I think that we're at an inflection point at which technology is going to change, yet again, the way we see and operate in this world. And third, the implications of this change for society at large and the new leadership it will require. Hello. There we go. Now, the first lesson is that information technology matters, and I know many of you here at school study information technology. I think arguably more than any other science in the last century, information technology has had more of an impact on our world than any other discipline. 100 years ago, the most important technology then was the punch card tabulator. You remember punch cards? There were buildings full of them 100 years ago. They allowed business and society to change the way they measured everything they did. For the first time, you could measure railroad rolling stock, retail inventories. It allowed governments for the first time to do very accurate censuses and to provide societal welfare programs. If you follow that journey, 50 years ago came the invention of the electronic data processing. The mainframe transformed the back office of business and government. Online transaction processing changed banking, insurance, retail, and transportation. It made possible the reservation systems we have today that allow for mass transit and for our airline network around the world. 30 years ago, we got the PC and personal empowerment, and I know I don't have to describe to you the impact of the PC. If you continue that journey, 15 years ago, we got perhaps the most powerful of all of these inventions, the internet, giving billions access to information, to companies, and to one another, transcending the limitations of time, space, and geography. Now there's 6 key sets of tools that have dominated the evolution of technology. I don't want to give you a technology history lesson here, but just a few thoughts to put it in perspective as to where we've come from. First, our sensing technology. For 35 years of the last 100, the key sensing technology was touch. It was the punched card. For the next 50 years, typing dominated. It was the principal way that we communicated with the computer. We made an early attempt in 1960 to achieve voice sensing with a computer. At that time, IBM had the first voice technology. It was called the IBM shoebox. It could understand 16 words. And if you think about today, the cars that many of you maybe drove to get here have a vocabulary of about 10,000 words. In memory, we are approaching total recall. From 1950 to 2010, the amount of information stored on a disk has increased by a factor of 17 million. The amount of information you can store in one area of a disk has increased by a factor of 17 million. The speed by which it can be read, that same amount of data, has increased 8,000 times. 8,000 times. And the cost dropped 1,000,000-fold. Now imagine if every other industry was operating at the same productivity. You'd be able to buy a car for about 3 cents. It would go Mach 2. You could circle the earth in a couple of hours. Processing technology. We've gone from vacuum tubes to transistors to optical. Very soon, we're working in our labs on superconducting technologies that will allow exascale computing. That's 1,000,000 trillion calculations per second. In logic, in the internet, in connections, and in architecture, we've also seen very dramatic changes. Sorry, keep getting ahead of ourselves. There we go. Now, our understanding of technology comes from the media. If our understanding of the technology comes from the media, you may think this is a story that's divided into two ages: hardware and software, or pre-internet and post-internet. But scientific discovery isn't simply before or after. It's complex, it's iterative, and continually evolving. We started with tabulating, complex mechanical counting. We've evolved today's powerful programmable systems, but we still have applications we program on those systems. I would like to think we're entering a new era, an era of smart systems, systems that learn from what they do, and that recognize patterns without programming. This will create a higher order of problem solving. So let's talk about one of those systems, a system called Watson. How many of you are familiar with the American game show Jeopardy? You know what this, some are? This is a question and answer. It's a game show. It requires a high order of intelligence. There's a lot of word puns. The answer is given, and you have to ask the question in certain categories. We had 25 scientists do 4 years of development on Watson. It's powered by 2,880 processor cores and 15 terabytes of RAM. So when the question is asked, you have 5 seconds to punch in and answer the question. The system was not connected to the internet, so it had to know everything that it knew of any of the categories that could come up in Jeopardy to win. And of course, it did. Its algorithms understand natural language. This is an enormous breakthrough in computing. It can decipher the meaning of words and run complex analytics. Hundreds of algorithms scour the databases, and the closer the match, the more confident the machine is in its answer. If the answer is wrong, which you saw on the show, if you'd watched the show, it did get some answers wrong, it self-adjusted and began to teach itself in real time. Think of the implications of this for healthcare, for banking, for complex, deep Q&A type of applications, where the wealth of information, take the healthcare industry. Look how much information is published every day. If you're a doctor and you graduate a week ago, there's a tremendous body of information that's available to you just a week later. There's no way you can absorb it all. That's why we've announced, along with WellPoint, which is the largest U.S. healthcare benefits company, a major program using Watson's technology where Watson will assist the physician with diagnoses. It won't necessarily do the actual diagnosis, but this will be a huge assistance to the physician and getting to a higher order of evidence-based medical care. So it has enormous consequences. Now, I said we're at an inflection point. IT has moved, information technology has moved beyond a science and an industry. It's become a pervasive aspect of the modern world. The systems and processes that enable services to be delivered, physical goods developed, manufactured and sold, allowing everything from people, freight, oil, water, and electrons to move, and billions of people to work and live. In fact, we live in a world today that's instrumented, that's interconnected, and intelligent. We have the chance to change the way the world works because we are at the intersection of the digital world and the physical world. Consider the following facts. Today, there are 1 billion transistors per human being on this earth, and they cost 1/10 millionth of a cent. 1 billion per person. We have 4 billion people on mobile phones around the world. We have 30 billion radio frequency identification tags giving us real-time instrumentation, of the world's systems. This is persnickety there. Natural and man-made. And it's not just instrumented, it's interconnected. While there are 2 billion people on the internet, there are 1 trillion things attached to the internet. Cars, cameras, roadways, pipelines, livestock, and pharmaceuticals. Advanced analytics, supercomputers, can turn all of that data into insight. Forward-thinking companies and governments are taking advantage of this. I'd like to share with you a few examples. We're working in Peru with a private metropolitan network for the city of Los Olivos to interconnect the district's public institutions with over 60,000 homes. This will be a new delivery system for them for everything from their healthcare system to their public welfare to all of the city's services. It's a completely interconnected and smart city. IBM and the Marine Institute have developed a smart bay system. This is in Ireland, in Galway Bay. Imagine if the bay, your most valuable private resource, by putting sensors on buoys floating in the bay, the government is able to determine the pollution levels in the water. The fishermen are able to determine patterns in how the fish have been moving in the bay and how they can better catch their catch and not disturb portions of the catch that would deplete the overall resource. It's being used as a key in the weather forecasting for the area. These are all things that are possible today in any city. And take, for instance, what we've done with the Mars Chocolate Company. The cocoa bean grows in subtropical climates, small farmers, and is very apt to get various diseases. It looked at one point 10 years ago like the cocoa crops of the world would be wiped out. The Mars Company came to IBM and we worked with them to decode the genome of the cocoa bean, put that into the public sector. And already today, farmers from around the world, researchers, governments, health institutions have been working from that information from that decoded genome to eliminate 17 different kinds of disease that the cocoa bean had experienced in the past. Imagine if we could do that with all crops. Imagine if we could do that with all crops. Those are the kinds of things that are possible today. We also have the Chilean Red Cross has fundamentally, by connecting their community, has changed the way they do disaster recovery to great effect for their constituents. And in Canada, an example not unlike what could happen here in Argentina. In Canada, the beef trade there is now, the government is able to detect exactly what happened from the time of birth all the way to the time it makes it to the market, with great understanding of what that, the whole life cycle of that animal has been throughout. These are just some of the possibilities that we're working on. And they continue. There are examples in petroleum here. Increase in drilling success rate to 50%. The savings from only one avoided dry well is $150 million. All of this is made possible because of an interconnected, intelligent, and instrumented world. Now, as someone who spent the last 30 years in the information technology industry, I firmly believe that this industry, more than any other, creates the tools and know-how that literally changes how the world works. As I've said, we're at a significant inflection point. We stand at a consequential moment for both scientific thought and technological capability. As today's industry leaders, we all have an obligation to understand it, not its mechanics, but its implications, and to incorporate it into our future work. This leads us to the third lesson of the past century of technological evolution. We need to rise to a new level of leadership and maturity within the IT industry and beyond. I'd like to close by offering you 3 practical thoughts about the management challenges facing all of us as this industry enters its second century. First, I urge you to embrace the establishment of standards, and they must be open. Of course, the importance of standards is widely understood, not just technology standards, but new global rules of the road for trade policy, intellectual policy, and more. Second, we all need to step up to some important policy implications of this technology transformation. Cameras in London and Chicago, in the Incheon Free Economic Zone in Korea, help alert police and other first responders to emergencies far faster and more precisely than ever before. That saves lives. Medical data is captured digitally, but it's also possible, makes it possible to dramatically reduce errors and improve treatment. But some citizens have expressed discomfort. Who has all this data? What will they do with it? Do I trust them? These are serious issues, and they'll require serious consideration by all the stakeholders of society. We need to build more than technological and business systems. We have to build a societal constituency. And that leads me to my last point, which will fall very much on you. You will need a new model of leadership. Our traditional idea of a leader is someone with superhuman vision and will, someone who sees the future, points to the horizon, and charges ahead, either compelling or inspiring others to follow. Frankly, this is the standard leadership model in this industry. And without question, the cult of personality in business is a powerful lure. The press cultivates the rock star leader. The markets trade on it. Some employees crave it. But given the complex reality we live in today, a world that has become a global system of systems, this model of leadership no longer seems appropriate. Much more will have to lead by listening, by attending to what these multifaceted ecosystems are telling us. As leaders, we will more often have to edit than dictate. More importantly, the key precondition for real progress now exists, not just in our labs, but in the world. People want it. From boardrooms to cabinet rooms to kitchen tables around the world, there's a hunger for fundamentally new approaches. One thing's clear. What the world is about to experience is more than a new era of technology. It's a new era of thought. Technology just makes it possible, which means that the next 100 years promise to be unlike the last. And that's very appealing for those whose basic orientation, curiosity, and energy is directed to the future. Thank you.
Bueno, para finalizar la reunión voy a entregar un presente a Mike por su paso por la universidad.
Beautiful. There we go. Perfect. All set? Thank you all.
CXO Community.